All right, Octopus's Garden there, because we're talking about, well, I guess we're going to talk a little bit about gardening of oysters probably in the process of this, but I'm joined by Bobby Lax. Hi, Bobby. Thanks for dropping in.
Thank you for having me down here.
You could probably tell better than I. What are you doing down here?
Oyster Fest is next week, and just wanted to come down, eat some oysters, let people know that there are a few gala tickets, and the Mermaids Ball tickets are going pretty quickly. And the Mermaids Ball this year is going to be a pretty serious party. So
I've heard there's new things going on. There are some additions.
Yeah, I kind of thought Tofino is at its best when it's dressing up, and oysters create sort of a sultry feeling. So we're gonna have a burlesque show.
A burlesque show
to open up for Banana Fish Dance Orchestra, who's like this kick-ass party funk band.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, just everyone dressing up and dancing and oysters. It's kind of a good formula for Tofino.
For my wife, it's the event of the season. Like between it and Food and Wine Festival, there's Whale Festival and all the rest of that's the Oyster Festival is kind of the thing for her. So I'm glad to see some new fun and provocative things going on.
It's an indulgent time, and it's November in Tofino, so we need something that gets us out and about just a little.
Well, you have a little bit of media here that you thought might be a good setup for this. It's provocative, and it's about oysters. Can you tell me what the story is here?
For anyone who knows Brent Petcow, he's like one of the biggest proponents of oysters on the West Coast for oyster farmers. He gets himself out there. Mm-hmm. He started what he's called the Oyster Revolution, because they're a party starter, and they're one of the most sustainably farmed foods because they take no inputs into the water. They just grow on their own eating algae, and he rings the bell for oysters and does it in a pretty as he said, provocative way. And he's going to be,
Well, when I told you the story earlier, when I made the ad for Brent Petcow's appearance next week at the Wickeninish Inn, I sent it to their marketing person, and the music on it's got a little wah pedal and a little sexy flute and stuff in it, and walking bass lines, bow, bow, and I'm like, is the music a little too adult entertainment for it? I said to them over there at the Wick, and I got the response email was, ha ha ha, no, that'll be perfect for Brent. So it sounds like that'll be a fun night, first of all. But The Perfect Oyster, this is called?
Yeah, it's a short. It's called The Perfect Oyster. It's directed by Craig Noble, who also did a movie called Tableland. And you guys are about to hear it, but it's a sight, so check it out on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, The Perfect Oyster, Brent Petcow, Petkau, if that helps you. But here we go, The Perfect Oyster. I'm gonna turn the microphones off because we're gonna be laughing for sure. But listen to this.
A great oyster is usually associated with a great experience. The oyster is the ultimate social food. And it's almost like a crescendo. It's like it's peaking. As a life force, it wants to be sucked back. That's great. It's wild one minute, but another moment it's very nurturing and very calm and giving and loving. A great oyster responds to that kind of love.
All right, The Perfect Oyster indeed. Now, I've got, this could be The Perfect Oyster in front of me. I've never been a fan. Why would I want to eat something that looks like snot?
For anybody who likes the taste of the ocean, the oyster is kind of that right there. Super fresh, salty, makes you want to have a drink after. It's very.
I can go for that.
Yeah,
that's a good excuse for me.
It's very enlivening. They're an aphrodisiac. your wife might appreciate you
I appreciate
taking in a couple
that.
of oysters.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get in, I've got an oyster in my hand here, and I'm kind of staring at it. There's things dangling off of it. Where did this come from, this particular beast?
This oyster is actually from Subtle Island and outlandish shellfish. Subtle Island's between Marina and Cortez and Quadra, and they farm them in deep water there.
All right, and what have we done to it? It's just raw.
This is raw. We put a tiny bit of lime on it, but really we're leaving it au naturel so we can taste
and it's just
that area.
So am I going to chew on it? Do I want to just suck it back?
You'll taste more if you chew on it. If you're worried about maybe, like for beginners, I say just take it back. I give the smallest, freshest one I can. But for non-beginners, taste it, chew it. Oysters hold the area where they live, like the food that's there, whether it's a saltier area or closer to freshwater. So
it's kind of like where wine grapes.
Yeah, exactly.
Same kind of thing.
The idea of terroir with oysters, it's terroir. Like you can taste whether it's from various different bays.
All right, I got a little grumbly in my tumble here. Let's go for it.
Cheers.
Ooh, it was tough to convince myself to swallow that, but good. Like the salt you mentioned earlier, we were talking about the process, the salt and the putting your cup down, the salt and the lime part of it, the savory, salty sort of thing. That definitely does help keep the fishiness to a minimum.
Yeah, it tames the oyster. Though oysters are salty, they're briny, so when you have salt and then you have acid, it balances out on your palate. And lime, just like a cleaner, it leaves your mouth feeling fresh, feeling clean.
So what am I? They talk about all the nutritional benefits of it and the extra energy and the aphrodisiac thing. Is it just like chock full of vitamin whatever? Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, it retains. There's a lot of iron, which I believe it affects your testosterone levels. Like when something's packed with iron, I think it's the iron. And that's one of the reasons that's considered aphrodisiac. Another one is the risk involved. Yeah. You're having an oyster. People die from eating these, but people also live from eating these. So, we have really clean waters here, and in Canada there's really stringent regulations. So that's why we don't have the people getting
that risk associated.
Yeah, as much of a risk as different places with warmer waters. We have some of Clayoquot Sound has some of the cleanest waters around, so we're really lucky. And DFO will shut an area down way before it's dangerous to eat. And
anywhere near the gray area, and they're shutting it down.
Well, actually, I think it's like 80 parts per million for PSP is when they'll shut an area down, and it's something like 500 or 5,000 parts per million. I'm not a scientist, but this is just from working on
exponential.
Yeah, exactly. They're very careful, and they take care of us well.
All right,
and so it's funny. Sometimes people are more afraid to eat something that's fresh out of the ocean than they are like something that's packaged at some
packaged and frozen
dirty company where it's processed and preservatives and stuff.
Some slicer with salmonella all over it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we've got different kinds of oysters in here. What's the difference?
So we just had ones that were from Subtle Island that are grown in trays that are deep water, and in front of me I have some that Tim Martell picked from Mike Mullins Beach, who owns Mermaid Tails, and they're from Lemons Inlet. Super green, beautiful oysters.
Yeah, it's like we were talking earlier, reflective, almost like iron pyrite, sort of fool's gold quality on some of the outside.
Yeah, we're gonna see if I can get a little bit of a pop on this one, just so everyone can
get
hear
the effect.
The oyster.
There we go.
There we go. Oh, and then you got juices running down your hand. Always a good sign. So yeah, you always want a lot of liquor. It's called oyster liquor. It's just. It's the juice in an oyster that lets you know that it's fresh.
So we're talking about Oyster Festival, by the way. Oyster Fest comes up this weekend, next weekend rather, the 19th and the 20th. Oyster, the gala is on the 20th. That's the kind of the flagship event of it. There's still a couple of tickets left for that one, but the Mermaids Ball on Friday, still a number of tickets. We were talking about that earlier. Burlesque show, Funky Monkey Banana.
Banana Fish Dance Orchestra, or BFDO, if you will. And there's also a slurping contest. And the festivities are going to get going pretty early because we got a lot to do with the slurping contest and the burlesque and the bands. So, if people are showing up there, 9:30, that's it's kind of, there's a free beer tasting for the first half an hour or hour with Phillips, and wine as well with a bunch of different cool wineries.
Cool.
And
so what are these tickets worth? $40?
No,
the ball?
a Mermaid's Ball is 25.
And so you're going to eat a ton of oysters. You're going to get free wine tasting, rock and roll, and a burlesque show for $25.
There you go.
That's
the party.
That is a killer Friday night. That's like one of those Friday nights that you would talk about for a long, long time, and somebody would go, "Did you have to fly to Montreal to do that?" No, man, I did it in Tofino right here. That's really killer. That's awesome. Do you know where tickets are available before we get into the second round of oysters?
At Mermaid Tales Bookshop and Wildside Booksellers.
Okay, and there's a website too,
which is also Tofino Sea Kayaking.
Tofino Sea Kayaking, and oystergala.com is the website if people want to find out more.
Exactly.
And there's other events. The Wiccan Inn has Brent coming in.
They have the aforementioned Brent Petcow. He's probably the most enthusiastic person to talk about oysters that I've ever met.
You seem pretty fired up about oysters.
Yeah, they're a fun thing.
All right.
Me and Brent get along.
You get along. You can talk oysters.
Yeah, we can hang out.
Well, we were just talking actually before oysters. To me, like not being an oyster eater per se, I noticed that they do have a huge social component. Like Brent said, and you did. People talk about them. They're a conversation thing. I had oysters at my wedding, and I had a bunch of Albertans who would never, have thought about it. And they come in, they see it, they experience it, they taste the one. They're like, "Oh, that's great!" And they, but there's always that process. It's like, "Oh, you just eat them raw," and then, well, where do they come from? Do they farm them? Where do they, how do you prepare them? I had them cooked somewhere.
There's always different questions about oysters. Yeah. They definitely keep that conversation going, and kind of a different night because there's always someone in the crowd who hasn't had one, and I'm always looking for that person just to introduce them because I appreciate them being introduced to me.
Okay, this one seems a little bigger. I kind of get the impression that I'm going to have to chew this one.
That one's a little more meat than the one we just had.
All right. Are they like different families? Is this like
no? They're all. I think they're all the same species. They're Japanese species. They're actually not native to BC. It's called Crassostrea gigas. I think it's Crassostrea. Forgive me for all of you,
all the hardcore oyster biology
good pronouncers. But gigas for short. That's an easy one. And. Yeah.
So it's just the difference is how they were grown, like the beach oyster versus the tray, and the different nutrients in the water, like we talked about before.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Here we go.
All right.
Number 2.
Yeah. Okay, that actually wasn't too bad, chomping into it. I was worried there. I could go for this. I don't know if I'm going to be like Tara and line up and have 75 in a row in one night, but no, this has been a good experience from a. I think my seafood phobia is probably mostly all in my mind. I think
it's in a lot of people's.
I've had some great tuna tataki lately. I'm gonna go for that. This has been pretty good. Had some smoked salmon on a bagel from the Tofino Bagel Company a while back. Went for that. So maybe it's time for me to grow up.
It's where we live.
Well, you'd be foolish not to, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm always surprised. People come out here and they haven't indulged in the seafood. They're probably like me, who grew up in Toronto and, or anywhere in Ontario, because that's the majority of people here.
Yeah.
They haven't come and tried the
come out here and done it right.
Fresh shellfish, the food that's close to us.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming, man.
Yep.
This has been a lot of fun. Oyster Festival, like we said, next weekend, Friday and Saturday, the 19th and the 20th, are the Mermaid's Ball and the Oyster Gala, respectively. Still a couple of tickets for the gala. A number of tickets, I guess, available still for the for the Mermaid's Ball. Oyster Ball. I guess that's kind of what it is. But it's going to be a ton of fun. Tickets available at the bookstores in Tofino. Both bookstores, in Tofino. And Bobby Lax has been down here to talk oysters. Thanks,
Sweet.
man.
Nice view.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for coming in and filling me up with irony goodness. I'm sorry that we couldn't get any pretty girls down here to eat oysters. That would have been, I think, probably better for everyone involved. And I was kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel and trying to get Cam to come in, but he couldn't make it either. I think he had a little too much fun doing his radio show last night. But thanks for listening. Thanks for dropping in, Bobby. And we're going to go to a quick song, and then we'll try to get caught up with our regular programming here on Long Beach Radio.